And here we are on Selection Sunday. Welcome into sportsbookreview.com, the SBR Selection Sunday setup here. The big man on campus is with us tonight. Ian Cameron is with us tonight. I'll be your host tonight, Donnie Rightside. A lot on deck. The best thing, fellas, that I think we can agree on, what we like about this show, it's fresh in our mind. We're going to go bracket by bracket, region by region, two of the best minds in the sport, folks. And before we get started, let's take care of a little bit of business. As you see the background right here, folks, the good people at BetOnline and Intertops are sponsoring the show, so give them a shout out. If you do use their sports books, obviously log on. Intertops is also giving us, folks, very important here, hashtag crunch time as a login code for extra benefits. So always be sure to use those. We know the lines aren't out just yet. They'll probably be filling in as we go over the show. Fellas, welcome in. Big man on campus. We'll start with you. Selection Sunday. It's here. It's like Christmas Eve for you.
Yep. Good to be with you, Donnie. Good and ready to break down the brackets. You know, we've worked very hard all year to get to this point, and you know, we're finally here. So looking forward to chatting about all the brackets, all the things that went on. Yeah, it should be fun.
Now, we'll have a good time here. We also want to bring in Ian Cameron here, the Canadian sensation, going to go over some games with Ian. Great day, great year. It's a lot of fun to talk shop here for us, and I'm excited, bud.
Absolutely, Donnie. It's one of the best times of year. March Madness. Can't wait. Looking forward to it. And, of course, if you've seen my tweets the last hour, I have my annual piss and moan session and bitch about the teams that didn't get in, the teams that got snubbed, and some of the teams that got in. But in a couple of days, none of that shit's going to matter. It's going to be about the games we've got, the matchups we've got, the teams we've got in the tournament, and breaking it all down and trying to make some money.
No, we're going to have a lot of fun. Welcome into the chat box. Already 169 people tuning in minutes into the show. We'll have some fun. We'll try to go over as many games as possible, have some fun, give maybe some sleepers in the tournament, some Cinderellas out there. Both of these two guys here that I'm going to tee up, some of the best in the industry at going over maybe some of those games you weren't anticipating that would happen. We're here to make it go over it. Now, let's take a look, folks. Today was Selection Sunday, but we still had some action today to decide who was going to get into the tournament. Before we take a look at maybe some snubs that got in and teams you didn't think would get in, let's go over a little bit of action today. Ian, I know on Twitter, same thing with Jeff. That Penn-Harvard game was sensational. 68-65 winner by Penn at the Palestra. A win and cover by the Penn Quakers here. Talk about that game first, big man, what you saw, how exciting it was. And again, Jeff, yes, South Philadelphia.
Yeah, you know, Penn-Harvard, maybe I missed it. I didn't think it was that exciting personally.
What? Come on now.
Yeah, that Ivy League doesn't do much for me. I didn't watch much of it, to be frank with you. Yeah, maybe I missed it, but a game in the 60s doesn't really make me too excited. But yeah, maybe I'll let Ian have that one. He might be better equipped to talk about that one.
Ian, get after it.
Yeah, Penn is a great story. Steve Donahue, he's had a ton of success in the past. He's a guy that's delivered this Penn Quakers team now to the NCAA tournament for a conference in the Ivy League where we're used to seeing, you know, the Harvards and Harvard and Yale and teams like that getting into the NCAA tournament year in and year out. Good to see Penn get in there. They played a great game. I like that I saw some resilience from them. Fell behind a couple of times in that game. Came back, turned the momentum in their favor. A run late in the first half was big for them. Great performance by Penn. Palestra, how can you not enjoy a game that comes from the world-famous Palestra? Great environment.
Yeah, it looked like almost near a sellout there at the Palestra, if it wasn't a sellout, but a lot of fun. You want to talk about having a game of runs, teams up by double digits, evaporating within minutes, going right down to the end on some missed three-pointers by Harvard, but a lot of fun there. I did see a couple people tweeting out. I know we go back and forth on Twitter. Maybe Penn is a sleeper team, and you saw the joke out there. Not really a sleeper team, but yes, they will be put to sleep in the NCAA tournament, but congratulations to the Ivy League champions. Let's talk about another interesting game, 821-822, 58-57 final, Davidson, Rhode Island. Another clash. You saw it almost maybe about a week ago down in Davidson, another close game. This one also just as close. Congratulations to Davidson, knocking a couple teams out of the line, getting that the automatic bid into the tournament here. Talk about that Davidson, Rhode Island game and what you saw, because Ian, I want to bring you in first. I was on probably the same wavelength as you, figuring the big dogs eat in the conference, the best team all year, neutral court. I thought Rhode Island would be able to get after Davidson, but the legs looked a little bit tired.
That second half was all tired legs. I mean, you saw guys that were missing shots left and right. Normally they'd make. Terrell had a terrible day for Rhode Island shooting the basketball. You saw Davidson miss some easy layups, a lot of missed bunnies around the basket. That's all third game and 3 day tired legs and fatigue getting in there. But credit to Bob McKillop. This is a guy year in and year out, does a really good job, sturdy job with this Davidson Wildcats program, has them in the tournament. And it's funny, I knew that was going to be a problem for some of these at-large teams, thinking, oh, good luck for your Syracuses and your teams like that getting into the tournament. Little did I know, but Davidson ends up getting in as an at-large, winning the A10 tournament. Great job by them, and I'm glad to see them dancing. They earned it.
Yeah, interesting one. Now, also the A10 winner this year, as we know, was Rhode Island. Jeff, if you watch it all, Rhode Island over the year, I like the way they play. They're deep, they're physical, they're talented. They almost give me an MO, Jeff, similar to what the Cincinnati Bearcats bring to the table. Guys that can make that clutch shot, play defense, been together, good head coach. Talk about maybe, Jeff, Rhode Island moving forward, or even Davidson moving forward before we get into the individual matchups that you see in the tournament coming up here.
Yeah, I mean, I think both these teams are got great guard play. I mean, with what Rhode Island has, Doughton, Terrell, those guys, the really good guard play, well coached. But I wasn't really too impressed with their performance in this tournament. It seemed like they were, I don't know, they didn't really care too much. Maybe is the point I want to make. I thought yesterday they looked disinterested, and I thought today they were poor as well. I don't know what was up with Rhode Island in this tournament. I guess they're just ready for the regular tournament to begin.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, Jeff. One more game we're going to talk about both with you two. 8-23, 8-24, Kentucky and Tennessee. Jeff, we've been waiting for the light to turn on all season long with Kentucky. They win the SEC with a hard-fought victory over Tennessee. One of the most enigmatic teams that you're going to see on a night-to-night basis, what you're going to get. Impressive run for Kentucky to get through the SEC. What do you see about them going forward and how big it was for that young team to go on the road? You want to call it a neutral environment in St. Louis. It was pretty much a Kentucky home game, but a nice win for the youngsters and Coach Cal there, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, according to a lot of people, this is an NIT team a month ago, but this is what Kentucky does. They're always in the tournament final, and they always win. They have the best talent. When that talent plays together as one, they're very difficult to beat. They were hitting shots from the outside. Kevin Knox was fantastic. Gilgeous-Alexander was very good. Wendy Gabriel's been an absolute sharpshooter in this tournament. Quade Green gives you 10 off the bench. They didn't even really get any performances out of Diallo or Nick Richards, and they were still able to get the job done here. Impressive win for Kentucky. Impressive run in this tournament in a pretty good SEC. Yeah, I mean, watch out Davidson if you're Kentucky. This team's starting to roll a little bit.
Ian, Kentucky had a nice lead early. Tennessee fought back, sort of a topsy-turvy game, which wasn't decided till late. But Tennessee, as we know, Ian, starting off in SEC play this year, wasn't picked to do all that well, but makes the surge. They're in the tournament. Talk about this game a little bit, Ian, that might set up for a run here in March Madness coming up.
Well, when you look at it for Kentucky, I think this is one of those SEC tournament wins where John Calipari is going to say this is one of the ones I've enjoyed the most because we've got this team finally playing at a level that we're starting to see them get physically tougher, mentally tougher. That's what it's going to take to beat a team like Tennessee. There were great quotes all over the place from Cal saying we were weak mentally, we were weak physically, we were just beaten up and bloodied playing Tennessee earlier this season. They didn't look like that team today. Kevin Knox was a beast today. How about my fellow Canadian from just right here in Hamilton, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Big game for him. He's played good down the stretch. Kentucky, look out for them. I still got my concerns. You look at that first game against that Davidson team that we just talked about. It's an experienced team. They're not going to get frazzled. Kentucky's going to have to stick to the program there, but Kentucky's certainly peaking at the right time. That's what you want to be at this time of year.
No, certainly. There are a couple other games to finish up. Last one, it was Houston, Cincinnati, and Jeff likes to use the term a rock fight. What a rock fight that was. Came right down to the wire. An impressive run by Houston, especially picking up the win over Wichita State and then battling again today against an equally tough opponent in the Cincinnati Bearcats. Jeff, going forward here, we watched Cincinnati all season long, play really good defense, but is there going to be a time, Jeff, where you're going to have to step up and play some offense here? Because another team, even though you play good defense, is going to get hot. You have to match them score for score. Bearcats moving forward, Jeff, what are we thinking?
I think they'll be fine. I mean, this team averages 75 a game. I know down the stretch they kind of struggled, and they kind of turned in a lot of these games to rock fights. That's what good defensive teams do. Generally, they're not up-tempo. Generally, they're going to run slower. I think they have plenty, and this is why I like Cincinnati long-term, because I do think they have plenty of advantages on the offensive end. Maybe we haven't seen it over the last couple games, but listen, they win dirty sometimes. That's what you have to do. They still have 4 guys in double figures. They're a very good rebounding team. I think they'll be fine. I think couple that with the defense. I'd rather have their offense than Virginia's. And I think they're just as good defensively as Virginia. So, yeah, I think Cincinnati will be just fine.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that, Jeff. Why don't we keep it moving forward? Let's get into the nitty gritty now. There's always a lot of arguments now on March Madness, especially on Selection Sunday. Teams that get left out, teams that, get put in. I'm going to leave it up to you two here. I'll let ones that I didn't think that would get in. If you're asking me who I'm going to be upset with the most, forget, me, I've been railing on Oklahoma, but I'm upset that Syracuse is a team that gets in and a team like the USC Trojans gets left out of the tournament. Jeff, I'm going to start with you first. We see the first four in, the next four in, the next four in all season long, bracketology, whatever it would be. But now these teams are in and out. I want to talk to you first on this one. Give me a snub or two that you were upset with. I mean, not really upset with, but you thought should have gotten the tournament, and maybe teams that should not have been in that have gotten in also.
Listen, I don't really have any qualms really at all. The only qualm that I do have is I have no idea how Syracuse is a tournament team. None. Absolutely zero. This team was 8-10 in the ACC. They won one time against the top 25. They're 1-7 in those top 25 matchups. Now, the committee made it clear all they cared about was road wins. Okay, Syracuse was 4-6 on the road this year. Their RPI was 45th, not great. They were 308th in the country offensively. They really had no signature win that I can really count, other than maybe, I guess, Clemson. That's a good win. You did that on March 3rd. Other than that, I'm floored that Syracuse was in. I thought they were like maybe first 8 out, and they were towards like the 7th or 8th team. They had no shot to me of getting in, and I am floored at the fact that they are in. As far as a team that I think should have been in, I think St. Mary's will have qualms, but the problem with St. Mary's is they won't step up and play a good out-of-conference schedule. Gonzaga does. They don't. They won't play good out-of-conference teams. And, they could try to sell this bill of goods that they will and they do, but they don't. They also didn't play well towards the end of the season. You got beat by Gonzaga twice, or you got beat by Gonzaga that one time, and then BYU really took it to them. So I don't really think they have many qualms. Middle Tennessee, you shouldn't lose to South Alabama in your tournament. You won't have to worry about it. I think USC has a favorable concern. I know Ian will bring up Oklahoma, and again, should they be in? No, but I guess I can see why they're in. I don't see why Syracuse is in at all.
A few hundred people now watching the show. Thanks for tuning in. This is sportsbookreview.com. Obviously, these shows are going to be sponsored by BetOnline and also Intertops. With Intertops, use the bet code #CrunchTime to get the benefits there. Ian, I'm going to go to you next year. I know you're very opinionated on these subjects, and we can argue back and forth on who's in, who's out, but I need two from you who you maybe thought would get in and two who should not have got in here. Ian, go ahead, buddy. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma has to stand out. I mean, I think of Oklahoma State, to be honest with you, as a team that I think has a little bit of a gripe. Didn't we just see a week ago Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma in the Big 12 tournament? Like, the conference tournaments not matter anymore, and that is the issue with the committee here. The requisite requirements to make they change based on each individual tournament committee. Really, I mean, is it going to be road wins that are most important to you? Is it going to be conference tournament performance that's going to be most important to you? The thing changes year after year without any sort of consistency whatsoever. So you're left scrambling to figure out what these guys are thinking about, because what you think is what the most important criteria is with getting in, it changes year to year. You just don't know anymore. So Oklahoma, I'm sorry, you can't be so bad in the conference down the stretch to me and really make a strong case to get in. Even Arizona State is a bit of a surprise. I know the non-conference was a great run for them, great quality wins. The Kansas win on the road sticks out, but they were horrendous in conference play. It was a meltdown inside the Pac-12, whereas I look at a team like USC that made a nice run into the Pac-12 tournament final against Arizona, and obviously ran into a good Wildcats team there. But USC to me has a gripe over a team like Arizona State. So to me, the differences with the committee year in and year out, the criteria changes. You don't know what's most important to these guys year in and year out. It's very frustrating and aggravating. But like I said, in a couple of days, I'll forget all about being upset about some of these teams and be ready to break down these games.
Sounds good. Jeff, Jeff Steele is already leaking your information. Maybe he hacked into your computer. Says you like Nevada as a 7 seed, Jeff.
I don't have much opinion on Nevada. I don't know. I don't know what these people are talking about half the time. I don't know it. I don't like out. I'll get to them at some point.
You got it, folks. Let's have some fun now, all right? Now, the first four in Dayton, we're going to start with those games first before we get into the deep version of the bracket. Why don't we start at 6:40 p.m., 3/13. Obviously, that's in 2 days. Today's the 11th. It'll get started real quick. Long Island, Brooklyn. Jeff, I know you kept your eye on them all season long. I believe you also cashed a future with LIU Brooklyn versus Radford. Early indicators here, Jeff. We have some lines coming up, -3.5. Now, obviously, I do want to preface this, folks. This isn't so much a capping show and what we're going to give out and say you need to take and jump on this game. We're going to provide some information, some quick tidbits on each one of these games, because if we capped these games by tomorrow's right side of campus, me, Ian, and Jeff would still be breaking down these games. So let's get to it, Jeff. Any thoughts early? We'll start with you first. LIU Brooklyn and Radford.
Yeah, I would look towards the Blackbirds here. I think they're the better, more complete team. Radford, to me, is going to be one of those teams that's just happy to be there, in my opinion. I don't know if Radford belongs in this tournament. Actually, I know they don't belong in this tournament. They weren't the best team in that conference. They made it in on a buzzer beater. I think it's important when you're looking at these first four games, neutralizing teams that, to me, are happy to be there. Radford hasn't been there in many years. To me, Long Island Brooklyn is a little bit better of a team. They're able to handle a press. They can actually press themselves. When you have a press team facing a team that necessarily doesn't face presses on a regular basis, it might be in your best interest to grab it. They don't have a ton of time to prepare for this game. Not really sure why Radford's a 4-point favorite here. This is one that I'm betting as soon as I can, and I'm going to log in right now and bet it. I like LIU Brooklyn. I'll probably look to bet them on the money line, frankly.
Ian, how about this game in the first four out there in Dayton? What are we thinking about here?
Yeah, LIU Brooklyn was really impressive in the NEC tournament, a team that really caught on strong, really great performance. I mean, dominated Wagner on the road in that championship game. Real impressive from the Blackbirds. And, of course, the coach there, Kellogg, he is no stranger to coaching big-time basketball. UMass, of course, before for years. To me, with these games, you can put this game in the category. You can put the NC Central Texas Southern game in the same category. I need a damn good reason to lay more than a bucket in these Class D versus Class D smaller conference type of games, because they don't recruit the same kind of quality athlete. There's not usually a lot of difference and separation with these teams. So in these two, Texas Southern game and the LIU Brooklyn game, Donnie and Big Man, I'd need a damn good reason to lay more than a bucket with the favorite in these two games. That's for sure. That's just an initial gut thought.
All right, second game, first night, 5:45, 5:46, a 9-10 tip. This is a good one. St. Bonaventure is going to match up with UCLA. Lines are opening up here about 3.5, depending on where you're shopping at. A lot of this stuff, most people can't even get down yet, but some of these lines are leaking out as the show goes on. They will update. People will bet them. Those numbers will take shape. First, we're going to start with you, Jeff, there. St. Bonaventure, UCLA. I love the matchup. Can't wait to get involved with it. Good athletes out there, but the one thing you're going to come up with, you have an A10 team versus a Pac-12 team. Two different types of athletes, as Ian likes to point out, but three really nice guards that you're going to have for St. Bonaventure. They're going to be able to penetrate, play, and have played big over the year. But is it enough, Jeff, to get over the talent of UCLA? I know you're a buyer on UCLA.
Yeah, I don't see it here. I think UCLA will win and cover this game. St. Bonnie's an interesting team. They're fascinating. I love Mobley and Adams, but look, Courtney Stockard needs to play. If he doesn't play, I don't think they can win. I'm going to definitely follow the health of him. You saw yesterday that, for the most of the season, St. Bonaventure just has struggled at times to get that third scorer. Stockard had come on late in the season. I like UCLA. I think they could be a team that could make a run, win a game or two. I like what they have there, obviously, with Holiday, Thomas Welsh, Golemon. I like that team a lot. They've been through a lot this year, obviously with the off-season stuff, and those kids are now back in and contributing. I like UCLA. I think they'll get the job done and beat Bonaventure.
Ian, thoughts on that St. Bonaventure UCLA game? To me, obviously the star of the first day card as opposed to LIU Brooklyn Radford. Give us some tidbits on this game.
Should be a great game. I mean, St. Bonaventure, I definitely wouldn't count them out. It depends on where this number comes, but you're right. The injury to Stockard's a big one, as Jeff mentioned. Mobley and Adams are fantastic from a backcourt perspective for St. Bonnie's. They're going to be able to light it up, but the problem is, are they going to have an answer down low in the low post for Thomas Welsh? I think that's a bit of a concern. You can eat up Bonnie's a little bit on the inside. Golemon has really come on strong. Welsh has played great. Holiday's been great all season, but Welsh and Golemon in particular have really played well lately for UCLA, more than anything over the total. I'll be interested to see where this total goes. I think we'll see some points put up in this game.
All right, day two out there in Dayton, 609, 610, North Carolina Central. Jeff, we'll start with you on this one versus Texas Southern. Early line indicator, Jeff, opening up at -4.5 in the favor of Texas Southern. Give us some action and some inside information maybe on this game worth betting.
Yeah, I'm looking towards the Tigers, Texas Southern in this game. Look, I love Lavelle Moton. I think what they did to get to this, I actually took them to win the conference, and they surprised me and won it. He's a great coach. He's gotten this team into the tournament before, but Texas Southern, to me, I really like what they did in their out of conference. They went out and really challenged themselves. Started the season 0-13 for games like this, for situations like this. DeMontre Jefferson is must-see TV. He's a kid that could drop 30 on you in a second. 5'7", 150. I mean, he's a little guy, but this is a great scorer, man. And I think a lot of the time to beat NC Central, you have to be able to guard what they have down low. Rivas and the bigs there do a great job at NC Central. Look for a guy named Trevon Reed, 7'2", 240. He's going to be able to handle the load down there as long as he can stay out of foul trouble. I just like what Texas Southern does every year. Mike Davis goes out and schedules the right way. They're going to look and have an egg, probably by conference play, but they get that valuable experience that a lot of teams don't generally have. Give me Texas Southern. I think they're better equipped. I love DeMontre Jefferson.
Ian, day 2 in Dayton on this first game matchup. Give us some thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I love NC Central here, but like I said about the first game, I mean, it's a situation where in these matchups, I'd be reluctant to lay more than a bucket. I've seen it time and time again that you could see a team race out to a big lead, and then it ends up shrinking, and you're still ending up in a close game because the polish is just not there. So many of these smaller schools to finish it off. So for me, gut reaction early on is take the points.
All right, a few hundred people in the chat box. Thanks for tuning in. Give some thoughts, some quips out there. We certainly will be able to answer and get to as many games as we possibly can. This is the Sportsbook Review Selection Sunday Show brought to you by BetOnline and Intertops. We'll keep it moving here, Jeff. Game of the night, 6-11, 6-12, second day in Dayton, Jeff. Arizona State and Syracuse, two teams that maybe should not have gotten the tournament going to match up in this one, Jeff. Sometimes you come in with a little bit more to prove. Syracuse doesn't think most people think they shouldn't be there. Same thing with Arizona State. What do you see out of this matchup? Looks like a pick 'em to -1 in the favor of Arizona State early. Syracuse obviously playing close to the home. Arizona State traveling. Both teams I'm not impressed with, Jeff. What are we looking at?
And I think, Donnie, real quick, if I could throw one little piece of interesting news in here. I think if you listen to me all season, I tried to convey on multiple shows that I'm on, you don't schedule good enough, you're not going to the tournament. And I think this committee made it clear they care more about what happens in November and December as opposed to what happens late in the season. Listen, it's just how they are. Do I agree with it? No. But you look at a team like Arizona State. They were very good in the non-conference. Started out undefeated. We're the #1 team at one point. You look at Oklahoma, another team. You look at Syracuse. All these teams had decent non-conference. I think it's clear that the committee judged it by that. But in this game, if you can explain to me why you would list Syracuse as a favorite, I'd like to hear it. I don't see it. I think Arizona State's a much better basketball team than Syracuse is. Syracuse, did they get away with murder here? Yes. They won't be in this tournament very long. They'll lose the first game. I think Arizona State will win at least a game. Bob Hurley's team will beat Jim Boeheim's group.
Jeff, what's interesting about this game? We look at Syracuse in that matchup zone. Same thing that, back with the John Chaney Temple teams in those matchup zones. You want more time to prepare. Do you think it's a little bit more advantageous for Arizona State to get that extra day to get ready for that matchup zone? Maybe a little bit more of a bonus playing on day 2 than day 1 in Dayton?
Yeah, I definitely look. I think any day you can get extra is always beneficial, especially with the long season. Any day right now that you can get off. That's why for like a team like Michigan, some people like myself said that could hurt them, but it also could help. I mean, you get valuable, rejuvenation time. You get to relax a little bit. Kind of get prepared. It's always nice, Donnie. You ever when you leave a job and you go to another job. Were you ever a person that would quit a week early so you got a week to rejuvenate? That's kind of what I would do if I ever had a real job. I would do that, and I think that's beneficial. You clear your head, clear your mind. Everyone needs a bye week, Donnie.
No, I hear you there. Game 2, Ian, let's get some thoughts on this. Arizona State, Syracuse. Interesting, Matt. Both of these teams, I don't think, had the season they wanted to, but certainly ended up in the area that they wanted to. Maybe not in the first 4 in, but in the NCAA tournament. Both teams a little bit chips on their shoulder. Talk about this matchup and maybe some added advantages that one of these teams can have over the other.
It's the ultimate style clash game because you got Arizona State. They can score. They don't play very good defense, and it's the polar opposite with Syracuse. They play pretty good defense, and they can't hit the bottom of the ocean sometimes scoring the basketball. So that's the fascinating part of this game. I think it's a correlated game. If you like Arizona State, you like this game probably to be up and down the court more. They pull Syracuse into a pace-filled game that goes over. If you like Syracuse in this game, you probably look under the total that they can grind this into a half-court game, slow it down. It's probably what they're going to be wanting to do against this Arizona State team. So it's a great clash of styles. But I will say this, whoever wins this game, beware of betting against them in the next game. I've seen this happen before. Nobody thinks either of these teams belongs in the tournament, and there's a chip on their shoulder. Opposing teams might take them lightly, and they go on a run, ATS in particular, for a couple of games. I've seen it happen before. I'm not saying it will happen again, but it could.
Ian, I'm glad you brought that up because I like to take a look when you're betting conference tournaments. That team that gets to play first and gets that win under their shoulders and gets the butterflies out. You're going to look at these 4 teams there. Maybe not so much a Radford or an LIU Brooklyn or NC Central or Texas Southern, but let's just say UCLA beats St. Bonaventure. The butterflies are gone. The national stage, they're on the movement. Are you going to put any stock in that? Because I know you're looking already forward to round 2. If you have one of these teams, let's just say UCLA and Syracuse both win, does that give a little bit of an added bump for you next? Or are you looking saying, you know what, the other team's more rested here as opposed to playing the days before?
I think the extra game sometimes benefits that team. And they're going to be catching a healthy number usually against the next opponent on that Thursday or Friday. So from that standpoint, there are a lot of times I'm going to be looking to back that team that won in the play-in round, catching a bunch of points. It depends on the situation. Again, depends on the matchup. You can't just throw that out the window and not take that into account. But there are going to be times when I'll be looking to back teams in that spot that have had the game under their belt, won't be as rusty.
No, fantastic stuff. Folks, if you're just tuning in here, welcome to the Selection Show. Give us a like down there. Give us a dislike if you don't like the content that you're listening to. Hit the subscribe button. Check out everything sportsbookreview.com has to offer. Now's the time of the show we're going to get into and go bracket by bracket with the big boys. Bet Online right now releasing some numbers finally coming out. Radford at -3, UCLA at -3, Texas Southern -4.5, and Syracuse at -1. Let's go line by line here, folks. Why don't we just start in the East? And we'll take a look at Villanova for the winner of LIU and Radford, Jeff. I mean, we'll keep it quick on these ones here. Villanova looks like the overall #1 top seed here. And why not at this point? Give a little bit of thoughts on this game. I know there's not even a line out. It's 22, 23, 24, whatever it is. Survive and advance in the tournament. Instead of talking about the game, maybe something you can look forward to for Villanova, Jeff, here.
Yeah, Villanova will be laying a big number, as always. They'll be laying 22, 23. And if they get LIU Brooklyn presses, you should think that Villanova should be able to score at will here. I'd probably be looking at a total in that game. LIU Brooklyn is a fairly good offensive team, but as far as Villanova long-term, I think at this point, to me, after seeing what we saw over the weekend, I've seen Villanova twice this year, Donnie, live.
Yeah.
I might see them in the Final Four as well. I feel like I've seen them 8,000 times. I think they're the best team in the country overall. I think they have the best guards. I think Bridges has been fantastic. Their depth is pretty good. Spellman, obviously Phil Booth, Pascal, Jay Wright's a hell of a coach, and they've won a lot of big games. To me, overall, I think Villanova is most equipped to win the tournament this year right now. But yeah, if they get a Long Island Brooklyn, they should score a lot of points, 95, 100 points maybe.
Ian, I want to talk to you about this game, not so much the matchup, because you can pretty much pencil in. I mean, no 16 has ever beat a #1 seed. I don't see that going to be changing, especially in this game. I want to talk betting philosophy, since we don't know the exact, line of what it's going to be. It's probably going to be somewhere in the 20s. How do you look at these games, Ian, when you have an obviously decided talent advantage, one side being with Villanova, but we also have the survive and advance? I remember back in the mid-90s, I used to get a kick out of Kentucky, those Jamal Mashburn teams. They didn't care. They would beat you 110-39 in the first round of the tournament. But other teams going on, it's sort of survive and advance. Let's not have a scare where we win by, 5, 6, or 7 points. But if we're up 20 with 4.5 to go, we're going to slow it down, pull our starters out. Just give a little bit of a betting philosophy, how you would attack a game, especially like, let's just say Villanova and Radford in a game. You say, you know what, it's a 20-point line. Are you going to lean towards the dog? Or are you just going to say, you know what, talent's going to win out. They're going to just blast them.
Personally, Donnie, for 1 versus 16 matchups, most times I don't get involved a lot. But when I do, and if I'm ever going to look at the 16 seed as a big dog, I want a #1 seed and a big favorite that A, is maybe dealing with some injuries, specifically to key cogs, either starters or bench, and B, maybe extended themselves the previous weekend in their conference tournament. That maybe they're coming off, a run to the finals on Sunday, and they're just coming around playing a short turnaround Thursday, Friday, and maybe thinking to themselves, let's pace the minutes. Let's not wear our guys into the court tonight. And let's think about the bigger fish to fry in the games ahead, specifically in the upcoming weekend. So those are the times I may isolate a big dog, but it also has to make sense for me from a matchup standpoint. And I'm not sure it's going to make sense from a matchup standpoint for either LIU, Brooklyn, or Radford against Villanova. Villanova's not going to be phased by any press, not when you've got the experience of Brunson and Bridges and Booth. That's just not going to happen. So it's going to be a tall task for the underdog.
116s, 215s, not always the most exciting games, obviously, but flipping it right down, we'll get right to an 8-9 matchup here. Virginia Tech and Alabama. Colin Sexton wills his team into the tournament here versus a very game Virginia Tech team, which let that win slip away versus Notre Dame. Have a little bit of time to stew on that game. To me, overall, Jeff, in this game, I'm leaning a little bit towards Virginia Tech in this one, but talk about the matchup that you might be enticing in this one.
Yeah, I'm looking at Alabama here. I think I told you when we were in New York, I told you that I thought Alabama, Colin Sexton just looks like one of those kids that's ready to be in everyone's living room. Everyone's going to know who he is in a couple weeks. A lot of people already do, but I think a lot of people will. Virginia Tech doesn't do much for me. These are, interestingly enough, Donnie, two teams that I generally only want to back at home. I like Virginia Tech and Blacksburg, and I like Alabama down at Coleman Coliseum. I just think for me, the X factors, obviously Colin Sexton, he's the best player on the court. They're two similar teams, kind of. I heard I forget who it was, some idiot on one of these selection shows say, "Oh, first to 100 wins in that game."
Yes, awful comment. Good. I'm so glad you brought that up, Jeff. Thank you.
What the hell have you been? I got to tell you, dude.
Are they watching? Have they seen Tech?
I literally sit there and watch these guys, and I say, "How the fuck are you on TV?" Like I heard Charles Barkley talking about like basketball and saying that no one expects much out of New Mexico State. What are you talking about, dude? Like, of course no one expects much out of them. They're New Mexico State, and he's trying to talk about how he watched them last night and this and that. Dude, Alabama, Virginia Tech, I think first to 65 will win. I don't know what the hell Seth Davis is talking about. Another idiot. For me, I'm picking all these games straight up right now because I don't know all the numbers. Alabama will be in my bracket.
Ian, let's talk a little bit of turkey in this game. In the 8-9 seed, Virginia Tech and Alabama, you got to have some good guard play. Obviously, we talked about Colin Sexton, maybe some advantages. Justin Robinson, an equal foe in this one. Two teams pretty athletic, but you're right. Not the first teams to 100 in this one, but a pretty even matchup. What are we looking forward to?
It's a good one. It's really close. One thing I like about it is Alabama showing some better poise late in the season, certainly in the SEC tournament. And the thing in this kind of price range that we're dealing with here is who's going to make a big shot and get a clutch bucket for me in crunch time if this is a close game late. And Colin Sexton looks like he's playing with no weight or pressure on his shoulders. Give me the ball. I want it. With less than a minute to go, a 2-point game, I got no problem taking that big shot and hitting it for my team. That could be the difference in the end. At +2 or better, I'm kind of interested in the Alabama side here.
Tough one here in the next matchup, Jeff. A 5-12, which we know always you're going to want to pick one of those upsets between the 5 and the 12. This one going to be West Virginia and Murray State, Jeff. I know you've been following Murray State all season long. Big win entering into the tournament here. Finally getting back to the big dance. Tough game to match up with West Virginia. You're going to get them on a neutral court. We know how West Virginia likes to play. Real gritty and grimy. A tough matchup for me for Murray State. Talk about some advantages in this game, but maybe Murray State can get over on West Virginia. Or do you just think West Virginia's going to be too talented, Jeff, and Bob Huggins rolling on?
Yeah, Donnie, I think you're going out of the wrong bracket, man.
That's the only one I'm using is CBS at this one.
Because we were on the East and now we're in the Midwest, so I'm.
They might have the brackets wrong then, I guess.
Yeah, I'll actually send you a link of a good way to follow it. There's one that I found that's like doesn't have 8,000 fucking ads and that kind of thing. Who
do you have as the 5-12 in the East?
5-12 in the East is
it is West Virginia, Murray State. It is West Virginia, Murray State, 5-12 in the East. You know what? I think you're thinking he's going by betting rotation number on the betting board.
I might be. Okay, maybe you're right.
Yeah.
As far as Murray State, West Virginia, I think this would be a pretty high-scoring basketball game. Both these teams pretty up-tempo, both know how to handle presses, if it's my opinion. I like the bigs. These kind of teams kind of match up well against each other. Both kind of similar. I like Murray, though. I'm going to look towards – again, we don't know the lines in these games. I don't think Murray will win, but I think it'll be a pretty decently close game.
No, I would look at that. Ian, match up that West Virginia Murray State game. Give us a little pointers here.
Yeah, I mean, West Virginia, 9.5. They're not a team I rush to the betting window to lay 9.5 with, especially in a neutral court NCAA tournament environment against a Murray State team that, I know they're Ohio Valley, and that's not going to move the needle with your common college basketball person, but this is a good basketball team. Well coached, experienced, can shoot, can play pretty good defense as well. A very well-rounded team. It's all going to be about against that West Virginia team. Can they value the basketball? Don't turn it over. Don't feed into press Virginia and let them get easy baskets. Make them beat you with jump shooting, and that's not always something West Virginia can do. But I don't think Murray State's going to be buckling at the knees at this Bob Huggins out press here. So I could see Murray State hanging around.
Keep in mind, Murray State also. West Virginia is a team that we've talked about it. If you can beat that press, you were going to score against them. Murray State has really good ball handlers, particularly Jonathan Stark. Listen, I think Murray's a team that can maybe hang around. If you can get them double digits, I see +9 in certain books. If you can get double digits, maybe you look towards Murray there. West Virginia they're just gutless for me at times. They just look off, way too much than they look on.
Next in the matchups here, Wichita State and Marshall. We'll go right to you, Ian, on this one. Interesting matchup, Coach Marshall versus Marshall. Marshall can score the basketball. We know they have good guard play. They can fire the three, but this is a tough one. Wichita State, for me, though, all throughout the season, I like to bet them when they're at home as opposed to being on the road, which is the reason why I had Houston over Wichita State in the conference tournament. But this is going to be a little bit different here. Wichita State, to me, can clamp down on defense. If you want to play that high, potent attack, Wichita State can go with that, but also play some good defense. It's a nice mismatch to me for Wichita State. But again, the great thing about the tournament, if you get hot, you can beat anybody. And Marshall can shoot with anybody. Ian, talk about this matchup.
Marshall played very good, much better defense down the stretch in Conference USA, and it's a big reason why they won that tournament. I mean, they stifled Western Kentucky in that championship game. They played tremendous defense, and even head coach Dan D'Antoni was talking about it, how much better their defense has come. But this is a tough ask because Wichita State can score outside, great shooters on the outside, they can score inside with Morris and company down there. So it's going to be a very, very tough ask, I think, for Marshall defensively. This is a step up playing this Wichita State team, but we've talked about it before. Wichita State's defense all season long, it's left a lot to be desired. Can they improve? Can they step it up? They've shown signs of it at times, but it's not been consistent. My first thought is I want to look over the total in this game.
No, I hear you there. Jeff, talk about Wichita State and Marshall. I know a couple days ago you had Temple getting double digits, and they had the cover versus Wichita State. But again, survive and advance in the tournament. Some pointers here on Wichita State and Marshall from you, big man.
Yeah, Marshall, I was surprised to see them win yesterday. That was a gutsy win by D'Antoni's crew. And I love John Elmore. John Elmore is a hell of a player. But the concern I have with Marshall, I mean, what do you have other than John Elmore? Because they really don't have a whole hell of a lot. They can only run out about 6-7 bodies. Ajin Panava's been hurt as well. He actually played pretty well yesterday for the hurt as well. But this is a tough matchup. Wichita has so many players, so many guys. I don't really think Marshall's built to hang with Wichita. But, I mean, anytime you get Wichita out of that roundhouse, you might have a shot. John Elmer's going to have to score 35 points for them, 40 points for them to have a chance to win this game, in my opinion. As far as moving on, I find it hard to believe Marshall will get anywhere close to winning this game.
One quick last point on this game, too. Marshall, 7th in the country in pace. That's all the D'Antonis do. They go up and down the floor. We see Mike do it with the Rockets in the NBA. They're going to play that style. They're going to play that pace, whether it benefits them in this matchup or not. So you're going to get a lot of possessions with this Marshall team. And again, with Wichita State's leaky defense, I think you'll see points in that game.
We're going to leak in 3 teams in this one. 6-11 matchup. Florida and the winner of St. Bonaventure versus UCLA. Jeff, instead of capping this game, let's talk about it from Florida's perspective here. Who would Florida rather match up against? Would it be St. Bonaventure or UCLA?
I definitely think they'd rather match up against Bonaventure. And if UCLA wins, which I think they will, I could see them beating Florida. I don't like that matchup for the Gators. Look, I made it clear. If John Egbunu came back, I'd be interested a lot in Florida. I think he's a rim protector that they could really use. But right now, I don't love their front court. Goleman and Welsh could have big days. Obviously, UCLA has the guards to play with them as well. Florida just never really matriculated. They never got people back healthy that they needed to. They're a veteran team, and it wouldn't surprise me if that's a real toss-up game there. I would definitely think that they'd rather play St. Bonaventure for sure.
Ian, your thoughts on that? Florida, St. Bonaventure, UCLA, where do you see the added advantage, and who do you think Florida would like to play?
I think Florida would probably rather play St. Bonaventure as well, but at St. Bonaventure's no pushover. I think UCLA is going to, they might win that game. I don't think it's going to be easy for them. UCLA certainly played much better down the stretch. We talked about them. Florida's a weird team. I'm still not sure I'm ready to fully jump on that bandwagon and trust Mike White's team. Don't know if they showed me enough down the stretch. This is a game where I might be looking at that 6-11 seed plus whatever points they're getting here against Florida.
Now, it should be an interesting matchup. We'll keep it going forward, Jeff. Battle of Texas here. Texas Tech the third. He's going to play Stephen F. Austin. Jeff, a lot of people don't know about Stephen F. Austin. I know you picked up a couple wins here in the conference tournament with them. How do they obviously, Texas Tech is the better overall team. Can Stephen F. Austin compete with Texas Tech in this one?
I think this would be a real low-scoring basketball game. Obviously, two real good defensive teams. Texas Tech, we all know what they do on that end. They got Keenan Evans back healthy, which is important. Look, Stephen F. Austin's a team that will defend. They do run a press as well. Same thing they ran when Brad Underwood was there. I'm going to definitely be looking towards a total in this game under the number. Shannon Bogues, TJ Holyfield, good players for Stephen F. Austin. This should be a fun one. It's in Dallas, two Texas teams here. I'll be interested to see what I get for a line here. I'm looking squarely at a total in this game. I'll be looking under. Both these teams very deliberate. Don't run up tempo. Not particularly good shooting teams. The other night, for instance, Donnie, in that game against Nicholls State was shooting 26% in the first half and only I think down 10. Stephen F. Austin has a hard time lately pulling away from teams and really getting any sort of semblance offensively. I'd be looking towards a total in this game under the number.
Ian, 3-14 matchup, Texas Tech, Stephen F. Austin. Give me some notes here.
Yeah, I have no argument with the under. Texas Tech is a very good defensive team in a conference where the Big 12 and your defensive play with a lot of these teams is spotty at best. Chris Beard's team, and Chris Beard got this team to guard and play defense on a regular basis. And what I like about Texas Tech, if they're able to get past Stephen F. Austin, one of a deeper bench, a deeper rotation that they have than a lot of teams, I think they're well suited for a quick turnaround Saturday, Sunday game following a Thursday, Friday game. This Texas Tech team, not going to be easy. Stephen F. Austin, they're used to these NCAA tournament settings, not going to be scared by it by any stretch, but I think you're going to see Texas Tech move on and maybe in a good bet on spot Saturday or Sunday.
Folks, if you're just tuning into the SBR Selection Sunday Show, I'm your host today, Donnie Rightside, with the big man on campus and Ian Cameron. Give us a like down there, hit the subscribe button. Check out everything at sportsbookreview.com. Also, the show sponsored by BetOnline and also Intertops. We'll keep it moving here in the region. A 7-10 matchup, SEC Arkansas, Big East Butler. To me, by watching these two teams, I don't want to say the toughest teams, but not a ton of defense going to be played. Arkansas is going to try to push the pace. Jeff, we'll start with you first. Butler versus Arkansas.
Yeah, this has overwritten all over it. I'm definitely looking here total-wise. I don't love Butler at all, though. I'd be looking towards Arkansas in the game to win in a bracket. But, yeah, this looks like a typical Big East game this year. Should be up and down. As far as in a pick 'em, though, I'm definitely looking at Arkansas. I think they're the better team. Both these teams have struggled on the road. Butler had major issues doing that this year. Arkansas had trouble winning away from Fayetteville. So it is a pretty good toss-up, but I would probably look points here. We should see probably a total 160s-ish. Should see plenty of points here.
And can Butler pull all the upset? I don't know how much of an upset once the lines makers actually put a line on this number, but maybe a matchup breakdown that maybe Butler or Arkansas could try to use as a mismatch against either team.
Yeah, I'm not truly bullish on either of these teams coming into this particular game. Butler to me is a team that, especially on the road, their defense has disappeared. I'm not sure I'm ready to trust Arkansas, especially in a step-up game like this outside of the conference. Arkansas, after December, they were a pretty average, ordinary basketball team. So for the sake of time, from a side perspective, I don't have much on this game, but I wouldn't talk anyone out of the over. That does make some sense. Should be high scoring.
All right, number 2 seed Purdue Boilermakers going to take on the 15 seed Cal State Fullerton. Jeff, give us some notes and thoughts on this Purdue. Obviously, the 2-15, 1-16 games, not much to go on, but maybe give some adage like what can we look for from CS Fullerton, Jeff?
CS Fullerton, I'm not a big fan of the Big West. I don't do a ton of it. I don't bet a lot on it. But, Fullerton played well. They weren't the top seed or anything, made a run. This was not a good Big West overall this year. UC Davis was solid, those kind of teams. But Kyle Ullman's a player to keep an eye on. Khalid Ahmed as well, Jackson Rowe. They're a decent team, can shoot the ball pretty well, good from the free throw line. Purdue, look, if you can't stop Isaac Haas down low and those guys, you're not going to win. Listen, Purdue will win. I'm not getting involved with the side or betting it or anything.
Any quick thoughts on either one of these two teams here?
Well, you look at teams like Purdue, Virginia in this tournament, they got a lot to answer for because they've had disappointments in NCAA tournaments past. And Matt Painter's team's another one. So they should roll. They should take care of business here against Fullerton, but this is not the price range I'm laying with Purdue. It's also tough. The one thing about these teams out of this Big West, CS Fullerton and the likes, Irvine over the years, Santa Barbara, they've really had a tough time in this first round being competitive. And I think it's probably going to be status quo here for Fullerton.
Gotcha. 116 seed moving it down to the Midwest, Kansas, and those Penn Quakers who went dancing today. The fun of, winning the Ivy League is, you get the ring, you're going to probably move on and be a lawyer, a judge, a state senator, maybe even a president. But the ticket that you get to punch is to play a top seed in Kansas. Have fun, Penn, enjoy it. You're probably going to get knocked out relatively quick here by Kansas. Just give a little bit of food for thought on this game. Jeff, we'll start with you first. Kansas and moving on, or Penn, they can shoot. They're smart players. They don't turn the basketball over, but there's a little bit of a talent disparity here, right?
Yeah, I actually already bet this game. I took Kansas at 14.5. I don't understand why this number is only 14.5. Look, Penn is Penn. The Ivy League blows. Kansas should run away. I think if they get Azubuike back, that's huge. I don't know if they'll generally even need him though in this game. Listen, if you can get D'Souza playing the way he did throughout this tournament and Azubuike, that's all Kansas could ask for because he can represent what Billy Preston would have been to Kansas if he would have stayed around. Guard play's been fantastic. Malik Newman, Devontae Graham. Look, I hate to say this. I think Kansas is way quicker, way more athletic. I think they roll Penn. I think there's a 20-plus point win. I actually already laid it with Kansas.
Any quick thoughts on this game here?
I agree. That's the one flaw, and the fly in the ointment for Kansas is their front court depth. I mean, that's always going to be the thing that could come back to bite them in this tournament. I don't think it's going to impact them here one bit against Penn. You see D'Souza, the great game he had, 16 and 10 he had in that game. Talked about the guards, Newman, Graham, Sven Mikhailuk played very well and has played really well lately as well. So Kansas has a great backcourt. That front court shouldn't be a bad matchup for them here. Penn can't exploit maybe that potential weakness. So, yeah, Kansas should, in theory, win this game and maybe win it comfortably.
Folks, we could talk about each one of these games, break them down, but then again, there is a little bit of a time constraint that we do have to work under most times. So we're going to hit every game. We're going to go a little bit of rapid fire here and rotate between Ian and Jeff. Jeff, we'll start with you first here. 8-9 seed matchup, I think, is a really good one. The 8 seed Seton Hall is going to take on the 9 seed NC State. Big East versus ACC. Tips and pointers, Jeff, and what you're looking for here.
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup because you have the big Yurt 7 against Delgado. That should be a fun matchup down low. We always know Seton Hall, very good guard play. Can Desi Rodriguez play? They do need to get him back at some point. They kind of were able to do some good things without him, but, the other night against Butler, if he's in there, maybe they can win the game. They need him back healthy. Sonogo needs to become healthy. I'm not a big fan of fading Seton Hall in the first round. They generally find a way to win a game. Kevin Keats, though, with that press, they came on. If you can get NC State into a jump shooting game, generally that's going to be how you can beat them. Question is, can Seton Hall do that? I'll lean Seton Hall in this one, though. I'm not ever a big fan of 8-9 matchups. They're generally coin flips, and I just don't have a big opinion. I'll probably lean Seton Hall because I do like the senior leadership they have. All their really good players are seniors. I think that will go far for Kevin Willard here. As long as they have Des Rodriguez back, I'm looking towards the Hall.
Ian, 5-12 game here. Clemson, New Mexico State. Give us some thoughts on what you can think from the ACC here. And can Clemson, not the greatest team, but they're going to play defense. I know Jeff does have a problem with the way Clemson is coached. Let's talk about Clemson and New Mexico State in the 5-12 matchup.
Yeah, Clemson to me got a decent matchup here. I don't know if New Mexico State's got it in them to take care of business. I know I've got issues with Brownell. I've got issues with Clemson, but they actually did shoot the ball a little bit better. Admirable effort against Virginia in the ACC tournament. And if they can play defense, they're going to be in games. I think this is probably their one win. I don't know if I trust them to win more than one game, but for me, this might be a spot I'm actually willing to go ahead and maybe lay points with Clemson, even though I haven't loved this team. They should match up well here.
Hey, Donnie.
Yes.
Real quick, I just wanted to mention, I know it's Ian's game, but this is actually one of my favorite games of the tournament. I really like New Mexico State. I think they're going to win this basketball game. I think they are a really good basketball team. I think defensively they are top 15 in the country, very good team. I think bringing in Zach Lofton from Texas Southern's a great get. He's been fantastic. Eli Chua and Deere that are both there already. Jamario Jones. I mean, Donnie, Jamario Jones, 11 and 13 per game. That guy, really good. You look at their losses this year. I mean, you lose to SC, you lose to St. Mary's. I mean, decent teams. Played a good out-of-conference schedule. Beat Davidson, beat Miami. This is a beat New Mexico. This is a pretty good basketball team. I'm not a Clemson guy. I made that clear. I think without Grantham, I don't think they're nearly as good. Brad Burnell's a fraud loser coach. He never will win anything. I like New Mexico State here, plus 4.5. They will probably be in my bracket as an upset. I like them a lot. Chris Jans has done a great job there.
Jeff, we'll stay with you in the 4-13 matchup, Auburn and Charleston. I know we've been fading Auburn, so to speak, coming down, talking a lot on the roundtable about futures and what these teams look like. Auburn gets knocked out quick in the SEC tournament, a banged-up basketball team. Charleston, one of the teams I've rooted for the past couple of years. Joe Cheeley and the boys are going to take on Auburn. Can we see an upset in the making here, Jeff, from the College of Charleston?
It's a tough one because Auburn is so up-tempo, and it's really a clash in styles. But I will say, I think Charleston will luck out. I'm not a big fan of Nick Harris. They're big, but Auburn is going to be obviously without Anthony McNamara. I just think the athleticism will be a bit of a problem. But I will say this, Donnie. Charleston sees teams like this a lot in their conference. The William & Marys, the Hofstras, the up-tempo, teams like that can run up and down. I don't hate this matchup for Charleston. I could see them coming in inside the number here. They're getting double digits. You obviously do have to go across country. Both these teams, long travel schedules. And how will Auburn deal with being on the big stage? This is a game they're not familiar with very often. They don't go to the tournament much, Auburn. They're not a basketball school. And they did flounder a little bit towards the end of the season. This is an interesting game. I'd lean towards COC here getting the points.
Yeah, and you're going to get a bonus matchup here, 6-11 TCU. Let's treat it the same way we treated Florida. Who would TCU rather match up with, Arizona State or Syracuse here in this game?
I would say Syracuse, to be honest with you, because I think you just got more shooters, more offensive ability with Arizona State. It's maybe going to be a little bit tougher for you and be a little bit more challenged. TCU has been able to still play pretty decent defense at times, but down the stretch it wasn't as good. That defense under Jamie Dixon, it really took a hit. So I would try to stay away from Arizona State. At least if I can play Syracuse, maybe I'm going to get that team into a low-scoring grinder and have a chance to beat them there with just doing enough on the defensive end and maybe getting the odd extra bucket. But, TCU is one of those teams that's a wait and see for me. I'm not going to be in any rush to back them here against an Arizona State or a Syracuse. So watch it. This is one of those games where I might back that State-Syracuse winner against TCU in this matchup.
Jeff, 3-14 matchup here. Michigan State healing the world win by wind with Coach Izzo going up against the Bucknell Bison. Any tips, tidbits we can look at? Because Bucknell, we know, familiar with winning their league, been there, done that, but, tall task here with Michigan State.
This is another bit problem that I have with this committee. I mean, did just some of these teams just get fucked every fucking year? And Bucknell is a team that gets fucking fried every year. They put them up against, just the worst of the worst matchups. They did it last year against, I think it was West Virginia. Here's what I'll say about Nathan Davis's team. They're really good. I like Bucknell a lot, and I loved what they did early in the season. They're another team. Went out and challenged themselves, played Arkansas, played UNC, played Vermont, played St. Joe's, played, teams like Maryland and those kind of Monmouth. They faced teams, LaSalle, VCU. They challenged themselves, and that's something that can go far. Question is, can they handle Michigan State? Look, if you're interested right now in laying 13.5 of Michigan State, go ahead. I'm not. I don't see it with them. I think Nana Fallon's a good player that can handle the bigs down low. Guard play for Bucknell's pretty solid. Bucknell's going to have to slow the pace, play in the half court. I like Bucknell. I would go towards taking the points here. If you're going to lay 13.5 with Michigan State, go the hell ahead, but I'm not going to. I think Michigan State's guards, Cassius Winston, those kind of players, I don't necessarily trust them. Stephen Brown, guys like that for Bucknell, they don't turn the basketball over. Nathan Davis will have Bucknell ready. I would go with the points. I like Bucknell here.
Ian, great matchup here coming up. 7-10, Rhode Island, Oklahoma. Rhode Island, that I like to say that battle-tested, tough team. Oklahoma, a little bit softer here. I think they have the guards, Rhode Island, to mess around with Trey over with Oklahoma. And I'm going to use his name just that. I'm just going to say Trey because I hope he's out of the tournament. I don't even want to see him continue past this game. It's kind of a homerish pick for me. Give me Rhode Island this one. What are we looking for, Ian? Do you like Rhode Island here? Maybe it's Oklahoma struggling down the stretch. Nobody thought we could get in. To use that angle is chip on their shoulder for Oklahoma.
Matchup-wise, better team, Rhode Island for sure. But the problem I have with this game, and I'm going to go back to it, Joe Blow, college basketball fan in Boise, Idaho, is going to love Rhode Island here. Adam in New York's going to love Rhode Island here. Chris in Miami's going to love Rhode Island here. Everybody's going to love Rhode Island, not give Oklahoma a chance because Oklahoma, nobody thinks they deserve to be in. They have Trey Young and nobody else. And these chip-on-their-shoulder teams, you watch a veteran coach like Lon Kruger maybe bring that up, getting his team ready for this game. Remember, Lon Kruger's no stranger, and he's done good things in this tournament in years past. It makes all the sense in the world to take Rhode Island, but I'm just saying, buyer beware. Doesn't smell right to me.
I agree. Real quick, I agree with this point totally. This reminds me of USC SMU last year. No one thought USC deserved to get into the field. They did. SMU came into that game all hot and bothered, ready to go. They got punched in the mouth. No one right now gives Oklahoma any chance. None. But they have a new lease on life. Trey Young is still a really good basketball player. Great breakdown, Ian. Good stuff.
And Rhode Island's looked a little scattershot this last week or two. They have not played their A game now like they were in November, December, and January. Just food for thought. Just initial thoughts here for me.
I agree.
You know how I talk about Oklahoma? Both your guys' jobs was to make a case for Rhode Island to pound Oklahoma. Why don't you guys listen to me at all?
I know. Because I didn't ask for Rhode Island to be playing Oklahoma or Oklahoma to be playing Rhode Island. Got to give you my thoughts now.
No, I hear that. 2-15 matchup, Jeff. And I don't think this is a really bad matchup for Iona. I love the way Iona plays. You know, a lot of guards, you know, a lot of bigs down there. The problem that the problem that Iona's going to have is how do you handle the length and the athletic ability down low, especially with Bagley here, Jeff? We'll keep it moving quickly on this. Duke Iona thoughts.
Bagley might have 40 in this game. I mean, Iona's another team that gets shit matchups every year. They got Oregon.
Yeah,
they got Ball. Yeah.
Yeah, listen. I mean, I think the over is worth a look because I think you have a lot of garbage points here. This game, I think, with 9 minutes to go, will probably be 89-60, and you're just like, okay, just keep going up and down and scoring. Iona probably will put up 70 in this game. I think Duke will hit 100. I think anything under 173 is a good over. Tough matchup for Iona, but they do have good guards. And Donnie, we do know at times Duke can struggle. I mean, they have Grayson Allen's, got head issues, as we know. Don't sleep on the four-guard lineup for Iona. Tim Cluse is they'll score points. This is a great over game to me.
Yeah, I think I have bet just quickly on this game. I think I've bet Iona over the total in their first round matchup every time they've had one. I'm going to be looking to do the exact same thing here because Duke's going to this zone defense now. Coach K is having them do that because he doesn't trust his man-to-man defense on this team. But Iona is a decent three-point shooting team, 38%. They're going to be able to hit some shots from three. They're not going to come close, I think, to winning this game or even covering. I think Duke's still going to have way too much scoring inside from Bagley. But this is going to light up the scoreboard, I think. I think we go over the total, Duke and Iona, big time here.
Layup for you here, Ian. Nice win by Virginia to win the ACC tournament. They're going to get University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Should be an easy victory for them. Forget about the game itself. Virginia's going to win that game. Talk about Virginia maybe moving forward also. Impressed with them? Or are you under the belief that, you know what, it's a great thing that you play defense, but you're going to have to step it up on offense when that competition increases here as we go in the tournament? Talk a little bit about Virginia, Ian.
Well, that's the thing. They could be staring at Arizona in the Sweet 16, and that always seems to be right around that round in the tournament where they hit that bugaboo and they hit that point where they just can't get over that hump. And obviously Arizona, if they do indeed face the Wildcats in that round, it's going to be a difficult matchup for them. But they're at least making some more shots. They've got some. Kyle Guy's had a great season for them shooting the basketball. Wilkins, a great defender. This is a Virginia team that is playing really good. This has got to be the year they finally get over the hump if they're finally going to do it. The question is, can they get that monkey off their back?
Jeff, matchup 8-9 seed Creighton and Kansas State here matching up. Give us some pointers on this.
I keep getting these fucking 8-9 games. I don't know. Flip a coin. I got to do a little more research into this. Dean Wade, if he's healthy, I'd probably look towards Kansas State. Though I do like Marcus Foster a lot. Kyrie Thomas, great wing defender. Listen, if they had Krempelli, I would like them in this game because he could handle Dean Wade. They don't have Krempelli, and without him, their defense is really bad. Kansas State should be able to move on here.
Next up, 5-12 seed, which I'm actually upset about this. Davidson, I rooted for. It's one of the teams I like to watch play. Love the head coach. Love the way these kids treat the basketball, not turning it over, hitting the open jump shot, playing good defense. What a tough matchup for them. 12-5 seeder, Ian. Kentucky versus Davidson. Talk about it.
Yeah, a difficult first-round matchup, Davidson, Kentucky. And you look at the number right now, Kentucky laying 5.5, 6. There's a little tax, too, on Davidson. They know that Davidson's of the past have pulled a shocker or two in this NCAA tournament. You got Kentucky laying 5.5, 6, a reasonable number at least in this game. Yeah, I mean, Davidson, they've had a hell of a run, great run to the A10 tournament final this year, get into this NCAA tournament. But you've got Coach Cal getting this team playing well at the right time. I'm still not in love, Donnie, personally, with laying 5.5, 6 with Kentucky here, but they're peaking at the right time, and I'm still a little gun-shy to go against them.
Ian, never a bad thing to do is take the points and pray in the tournament. These teams can ball out, and the one thing Jeff is always going to tell you, and we should put a tattoo on, if you can make your free throws and not turn the basketball over, you're always going to be in the game to cover lines. Jeff, I'm going to give you a good matchup here, at least, on paper, so to speak. Arizona and Buffalo. Buffalo running the MAC all season long. Clearly the best team, very athletic. But when we talk athletic, Jeff, there's another level of athletic that Arizona brings to the table. Not your normal 4 seed here. So Buffalo, to me, is going to get bounced pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because Arizona played Kent State last year. I think it was Kent State. It might have been UCLA. But either way, DeAndre Ayton's on another fucking level. The guy's and people can talk shit to me all they want. I don't care. I think DeAndre Ayton is better coming out of school than any of the bigs we've seen. And the numbers have backed it up. He's had better numbers than Karl-Anthony Towns, Joel Embiid, and Anthony Davis. If you look at the advanced numbers, he has better numbers than all of them. Buffalo's a team that will score some points. Arizona's got to get the defense fixed. If they can continue to defend, if Parker Jackson Cartwright and Raleigh Hawkins can continue to defend the way they have been over the last 2 or 3 games, they will win, and they will win handily here. If they get back to the old Arizona where they just allow dribble penetration constantly like they did against NC State and those kind of teams, this will be a dogfight here. Buffalo's a good offensive team. Wes Clark, Masonburg, they're a good little basketball team. But this is a tough travel schedule for Buffalo, heading out to Boise, basically going to be playing, at noon. I think Arizona will win. They should win fairly easily.
Yeah, it's a level-up program there. Obviously, saw Hurley took that Buffalo team to the next level. He got out of there, got a major job. Same thing is going to be with Nate Oates. Even though he just signed a long-term extension with Buffalo, that paper's not worth what it's written on right now. He'll be out of there soon, and he does run a good program and a good basketball team. Ian, let's get up on this next game. 6-11, good one here. Miami, Florida. The Hurricanes are going to take on Loyola Chicago. A lot of people hear the name Loyola Chicago and just think, oh, man, Miami's just going to run over this basketball team. If you haven't watched Loyola Chicago throughout the season, they do everything well, from being coached well to hit the three-pointer to playing good defense to not turning the basketball over. Ian, give us some pointers on this Miami-Loyola Chicago game.
I think Miami and the Jim Larinaga crew isn't tough here. I really, really do. I mean, I think this Loyola Chicago team's really good. Porter Moser's done a great job. They're well balanced. They have great defensive basketball team. 5th in the country points per game allowed, 40th defensive field goal percentage. They've got Clayton Custer, who had a great season. Ben Richardson's another guy that hit big shot. Dante Ingram. There's some guys that can just shoot the ball for this Loyola Chicago team. Miami is still offense is the problem with them. I don't know if I can consistently rely on them to make big shots. And if this is a close game late, I actually think Loyola might be the team I have more faith in to make a big shot for me at the end of a close game than Miami. I could see the 6th seed going down here. I really could.
No, it's going to be a good one. It's another one of those teams like, when you head into the tournament, me and Jeff, if Temple doesn't make it in, you try to glom on the teams that you can root for. This by far one of the teams I do like to root for. Let's keep it going, Jeff. Tennessee, the 3 seed, taking on Wright State. Let's talk about some matchup issues here that Wright State's going to have with Tennessee.
I'm Wright State. Listen, they're in the Horizon League, so luckily some random team always finds a way to win their conference, but they're not going to beat Tennessee. Wright State to me is, I think, one of the worst teams in this field. I don't think they do anything special. They're very average, really, every way you look at it. Scott Nagy's a good guy, but this is a bad matchup. Tennessee, I think, is a little overseeded. I thought they were more a 4 seed, but either way, they'll beat Wright State. Shouldn't be a problem. They're an easy mark to move on.
7-10 matchup, and we're going to go to Nevada versus Texas. Mo Bamba should maybe be back and healthy for this game. Nevada, maybe a little bit of a collapse late. Talk about this matchup here with the 7-10. Should be pretty even.
Yeah, I mean, I targeted Nevada as a potential bet on here in this tournament. I mean, does the San Diego State result, which was inexplicable on Friday night to me, explain much or change my thought? Not really. I still think, Musselman's got a chance to get this team geared up, shake that off, focus, get ready for this first game against Texas. It's not going to be easy, no question about that. We know Mo Bamba's been a big force in the middle for Texas. Their guards have really started to shoot the ball better and with more consistency down the stretch. But I'm going to give a long look to Nevada. This is an initial reaction. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I'm going to be looking long and hard at Nevada here.
By the way, Donnie, is it wrong that I've set my watch to 8:30 so I can watch the NIT Selection Sunday show? I'm more excited for that than I am for the tournament.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll give you another layup here for you, Jeff. 2 verse 15. It's going to be Cincinnati and Georgia State. Georgia State punching their ticket as being the conference champion. Cincinnati, we know what they're meant to be. Obviously, they won their tournament as well. We're going to easily be in the field. Cincinnati, I think they have a nice matchup here versus Georgia State. Should be able to get through. And then even getting through Nevada and Texas all the way through. I like their matchup even if they face Miami or Loyola Chicago. Jeff, talk a little bit about Cincinnati here.
Yeah, I think Ron Hunter's one of the best mid-major coaches in the country. The guy that you just continues to win really everywhere he goes, has had great success at Georgia State. And the fact that he went out and found a talent like DeMarcus Simmons is pretty unbelievable. To come in after his son leaves, goes to the NBA. Simmons is a hell of a player. The Sun Belt was, again, a very poor conference. It's got to be one of the most gutless conferences in the country. I mean, UL Lafayette rolls all season and just whimper out. Texas Arlington is one of the more mentally unstable teams I've ever encountered in this sport. Scott Cross has been there for 12 years and has made the tournament one time. Why is Scott Cross still at UT Arlington? Every year, he's got the best team in the conference, and they never win. Texas Arlington is gutless. Kevin Hervey better fix his shot selection or he's not going to the fucking NBA. He's going to be over in fucking Andorra somewhere playing in the fucking K-League somewhere. Listen, Cincinnati rolls. Georgia State's a nice story. Look out for DeMarcus Simmons. But, Ronnie Hunter, unfortunately, hey, listen, he has some magic up his sleeve. Maybe you can figure out a way to bother Cincinnati, but I just don't see enough bodies. Cincinnati's really deep and really good.
Yeah, folks, just to let you know, the odds makers, believing in some teams, not believing in some teams. That Miami-Florida game versus Loyola Chicago, that opened up at BetOnline at -2 in the favor of the Miami Hurricanes. So that's a lot of respect for Loyola in that one. So we'll keep in mind as it moves forward. Next up, a easy one, Ian. You keep on getting these, 1 seeds. We have to match up with a couple teams in this. Xavier versus North Carolina Central or Texas Southern. Forget about talking about the matchup itself. Talk about Xavier moving forward and Xavier ending up on the 1 line.
Xavier ending up on the 1 line, obviously courtesy of a Big East regular season title and at least a solid enough showing in the Big East tournament that it didn't cost them, at least in the eyes of the committee, that number 1 spot on the 1 line. But Chris Mack has done a good job. Defensively, at least, this team's been better down the stretch. They're going to have to carry that over, too, because there have been times I haven't liked Xavier's defense, but it was at least a little bit better down the stretch. When you look at their path upcoming, they're going to be looking at a Missouri-Florida State winnable game in the next one. So you could see this team quite obviously in a Sweet 16 matchup down the road with the Gonzaga, which would be one hell of a matchup. But, yeah, Xavier playing good basketball right now and maybe able to make a deep run here.
Folks, we're whipping through the West bracket here. Thanks for tuning in to the Sportsbook Review Selection Sunday Show. I'm your host, Donnie Rightside, with my counterparts, the big man on campus and Ian Cameron, sponsored by BetOnline and Intertop's promo code CrunchTime with Intertops. We'll keep it moving here. Now, since Jeff gets really mad, and I know when he gets mad, he doesn't like 8-9 matchups, so we're going to double up with Ian here and go 8-9 matchup, Missouri and Florida State. Porter Jr. in the playoffs here once again, or I should say once again for the first time coming back, showing a little bit of rust. And I know I didn't give Jeff this game because I don't even want him to chime in because, yes, Porter was rusty in that game.
I love
it. Affected him.
But I love Porter. I want to make that clear. I have a man crush. I have a man crush on Michael Porter. I'll come out and say it. Other than Jimmy Garoppolo, he's probably the one person I'd rather be in the country other than myself because, as many know, I am a king. But I do want to be either Michael Porter or Jimmy G.
We know who he's short of, though. Ian, talk about this matchup here. Athletic athletes all over the floor in this one. What are we looking at?
Yeah, I was disappointed by Missouri's performance with Porter back on the floor against Georgia in the SEC tournament, but that may not make me shy away from trying to back them here against Florida State. I don't know what it is about Florida State, but you get me Leonard Hamilton in an NCAA tournament setting, and I'm not exactly ready to trust a team coached by him. I'm sorry. I don't think he gets the job done for Florida State. I don't think he gets his teams very well prepared. Not saying I'm a Quanzo Martin guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I think Missouri's going to have time to integrate Porter into this team and rotation, get practice ready to go for this first tournament game. I'm kind of interested in the Missouri side here for sure. That would be the way I'd bet it for sure.
Jeff, 5-12 matchup for you here. Maybe some upset in the liking. I know you're a big fan of South Dakota State. They're going to take on a very talented Ohio State team. Can this 12 seed give the 5 seed some problems?
I definitely think they can. I mean, Mike Daum is a once in a couple year player for South Dakota State. A team like that, they don't get a player like that very often. How Tim Miles didn't draft or get Mike Daum at Nebraska, I'll never know. He's from Kimball, which isn't that far from Lincoln. That's why Tim Miles shouldn't be the coach at a high-level university like Nebraska, because he allows people like Mike Daum to get away. But I like this team because they've started to find other ways to score. Whether it's David King or Talen Houston or Flatten, they have plenty of options at South Dakota State. You're starting to see some added guys that can come in and give you some buckets. I thought they were really good defensively against the South Dakota Coyotes. I think they're going to give Ohio State a game. It'll be a good matchup. Diop against Mike Daum. I think you're going to go back and forth. A better matchup this year for South Dakota State as opposed to last year where they got big Gonzaga. That was a bad matchup for them. Don't sleep on the Jackrabbits, man. They have found a way to continue to get to this tournament. Daum is a guy that everyone needs to watch.
Nice segue, Jeff. Talking about Gonzaga, 4-13 matchup. We're going to have Gonzaga versus UNC Greensboro. Ian, what can we look from this matchup? Obviously, we think Gonzaga is going to win this, but maybe UNC Greensboro can maybe get caught in a look-ahead situation with Gonzaga, maybe catch them off guard, or are they just going to get pasted round one in this matchup?
I'm not so sure about pasted. Greensboro is pretty good, but I do expect Gonzaga to advance. Gonzaga was playing really, really well late in this season, a really tremendous showing in the WCC tournament. And Mark Few looks like he's got a team more than capable of getting a decent run in them here in the NCAA tournament. Jonathan Williams, Josh Perkins, Zach Norvell, Killian Tilly, who was amazing in the WCC tournament. There are a lot of good quality basketball players on this Gonzaga team, and it's probably going to be in the end too much for Greensboro to handle. Depends on what we see here, but I think Gonzaga should be able to take care of business. Not sure about laying the points, but they'll move on, I think.
Jeff, 6-11, great matchup here. White hot San Diego State as the 11th seed going to take on Houston. Obviously, if you've watched them down the stretch, no slouch, playing great basketball. I love this matchup. What can we look forward to?
Yes, I think Houston's going to be a tough matchup because they have found ways to break down some of the better defensive teams in the country, i.e. Cincinnati. I mean, we've seen that. They should have probably won that game today. Who the hell knows what happens on that last possession if they don't turn the ball over. Beat them before already. Beat Wichita State. Houston is a really good basketball team. Look, San Diego State, look, what a run through the Mountain West tournament. And it kind of made you think back to the old Steve Fisher teams there, who, I always appreciate. And they could face Michigan in the next round. I know Steve Fisher would have an interesting time watching that game. I think Houston's too good. I think Houston's a lot better than San Diego State. SDSU is going to have to get a mammoth performance and a Trey Kell, and they're going to have to make some three-point shots to win this one. Houston has really played well, Donnie, over the last 8 weeks probably. They're not just beating teams. A lot of the time they're crushing teams into oblivion. Houston will move on. I think they'll cover as well.
I like to say, if it's March, it must be Michigan playing well. An interesting dynamic in this. Obviously, we see they're the 3 seed going to match up against the 14 seed Montana. Most people don't know much about Montana, but the thing I want to talk to you about, Ian, is the interesting, dynamic here. You have the Big Ten, which usually ends their conference tournament, just like the other Power Fives, on Selection Sunday or Saturday, and then rolling right into the tournament. The Big East, as you know, the Big East, yes, plays a week ahead where the Big Ten wanted to sneak in. They had to play a week before. Now Michigan, a hot team, had to take a week and a half, 2 weeks off before they play again. Talk about the rust that might be a factor from a hot team coming in, because when you're playing well, you want to get right back on the court.
That's going to be the interesting thing. And I have great aspirations for Michigan and John Beilein's team in this tournament. In fact, spoiler alert, they're going to be in my Final Four when we talk about that at the end of this show. I think it's manageable for this Michigan Wolverines team. I mean, you look at it, Xavier's a team you're able to beat. You can't tell me they can't beat a North Carolina. You can't tell me they can't beat some of these teams that are in this bracket. They have played that well down the stretch. Played very good offensively, much improved defensively. Mo Wagner's been a beast in the middle for this team. We know they've got the shooters with Duncan Robinson and Rockman. I mean, Michigan peaking at the right time. Rust is a concern here. Montana's a good basketball team. I'm not going to sell them short, but that's going to be the thing I'm going to take away from this game, Donnie. Will the rust affect Michigan this first game? And if it doesn't, it could be a long run ahead for them in March.
By the way, this is an upset special for me. I'll just say that.
Ooh, just ring that out there. I like that. Yeah. 7-10 matchup. We're going to go Texas A&M and Providence. No rest for the weary in this one. These two teams are going to bang down low. A&M, as we know, has the Twin Towers, and also looking at Providence, just that street tough rock fight type team coached by Ed Cooley. Jeff, talk about A&M and Providence here.
Yeah, I thought A&M was one of the more disappointing teams in the country. I thought they were a team that maybe could challenge for a big or for an SEC title this year. Really just kind of, these are two teams that are always like, this is an 8-9 game, isn't it, Donnie? 8-9, right?
It is a 7-10.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, similar. I mean, these teams are always within 7 to 10. That's what their ranks always are. I like Providence. I like their guard play. That's one thing Ed Cooley's always been able to do. He's always had those really good guards. Obviously Chris Dunn a couple years ago. You look at this year with Cartwright and Diallo and all those guys, Bullock. But Texas A&M can really bang down low. They have, Robert Williams. And I wonder, though, about their motivation. They're kind of, to me, they're kind of the bigger, better version of Texas Arlington. They look to me like disinterested at times, kind of not all in the game. They don't love basketball, maybe. Another game that I don't have much on, I lean Providence, though. I like what that team does, like Ed Cooley a lot.
Last game we're going to talk about, Ian's going to get this one. Then we'll go with some matchups to look forward to as we go down the stretch and some Cinderella teams that you're going to want to listen to between the big man on campus and Ian Cameron. Ian, North Carolina, fresh off getting beat in the ACC title game, but knocking off Duke. Some yeoman's work by them. Going to take on Lipscomb. If you watch that Lipscomb game, which I know Jeff was watching intently versus Florida Gulf Coast, this team can shoot. This team is efficient. Will the defense come, and will they be able to match up against the athletes of North Carolina? But Lipscomb can shoot the rock. Ian, talk about this game.
They can. I mean, and that's the great thing about taking them as a big dog in a matchup like this. The back door would always be open. The one concern I have is that sometimes when you play at rapid pace and you play very fast against a team like North Carolina, that can sometimes play into North Carolina's strengths, and they have the chance to run you over and run you out of the gym playing that same pace that they prefer. That's a concern for me with Lipscomb, but I'd still lean Lipscomb plus the points, and more than that, over the total. This is going to be a game with plenty of points in it. You're going to see great pace on both sides. Lipscomb can shoot. They've got shooters all around the court that probably going to be able to knock down some shots against this Tar Heels team, so I think you see a high-scoring shootout here.
All right, interesting. Now, we finished up all the first-round games. We'll hang on for about another maybe 10, 15 minutes before we get out of here. But this is the part of the show what I like, which we can freewheel a little bit. And you have two of the best guys in the industry to talk with, Jeff and Ian, over these. Let's go to some matchups to look forward to it. And we'll take it by brackets. Instead of going over just this second-round game, let's start in the East bracket here. Obviously, Villanova being the top seed, Purdue is the 2 seed. Lining up maybe as a Sweet 16 or maybe that elite matchup. Jeff, we'll start with you first. Who would you like to see match up late that you think would be an intriguing matchup here in the East?
I think Wichita Villanova would be kind of an interesting game. If we can get to it, it'd obviously be in the Sweet 16, I guess it would be.
Yes.
I think that's pretty intriguing. Obviously, I think Wichita State has the ability to get to the Final Four. I think they're really strong, really every way you look at the ball. Their guards are really good. They can match up probably better even than Villanova in the front court. I think that's kind of an interesting game. I'm not in love with this region. Not a ton of stuff you really like here. I think it's Villanova. I think it's Wichita State.
Ian, talk about the East here. What would you like to see in that? Or maybe somebody coming out of the East, like an Arkansas surprise, a Florida surprise? Or are we going to look at chalk here? Give us a matchup that you're looking forward to in the East bracket.
I think it's Villanova's all the way, this East bracket. I think they're going to have a good run through it. I don't think it sets up terribly for them. If they play that Villanova-Wichita is a good matchup on paper, but Wichita State's defensive acumen and acuity on that end of the court just hasn't been there consistently enough for them to trust them. A team that could potentially sneak up and maybe make a run is, again, Texas Tech. I think that team in the Big 12 is got a deeper rotation, very well coached under Chris Beard. I guess if there's a team that could be able to make a little surprise run there, it could be Texas Tech.
Let's move it down to the Midwest. We'll start with you again, big man. One of the matchups I'd like to see, obviously, is the Duke-Rhode Island, because I think Rhode Island can get into Duke and be physical with them. Talk about some matchups in the Midwest that you would like to see down the line.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I think maybe even in the first weekend, I don't think Seton Hall can't beat Kansas. I mean, Seton Hall is a good guards. Delgado's an absolute freak. I think Kansas's future really relies on if Azubuike comes back. If Azubuike comes back, I think they can win the whole thing. If Azubuike doesn't come back, I don't know how far this team can go. I think Delgado is a really good player. I think Shinogo is really solid as well. If Azubuike doesn't come back, I think Seton Hall will beat Kansas on, what would it be, Saturday or Sunday, whenever that is. Look for Seton Hall to maybe make some noise. I also mentioned I think New Mexico State will beat Clemson. I think Charleston can beat Auburn. This is an interesting bracket. I think you'd see some real upsets even on day one, but I'm looking Seton Hall to maybe make a Sweet 16 run, Don.
Jeff, how about Seton Hall also? Talk about them. I mean, you're going to get now, as opposed to going back-to-back or playing, a little bit of rest for Desi Rodriguez. If he comes back anywhere 100%, that's a tough physical team, Jeff. I like where you're going there. Ian, let's talk Midwest basketball. What matchups can we look at or that you're looking forward to matching up with?
Yeah, Midwest is an interesting bracket here. It's not a bad thought with Seton Hall. I think the Seton Hall or NC State winner could actually, be a threat to Kansas in that particular part of that bracket. The one thing about Seton Hall I want to point out, though, if I'm Kevin Willard, I'm somehow drilling into my players. Let us go in practice this week. Let's work on our free throws, please, because that is the one thing that always scares me about Seton Hall. Tough, physical, good defensively, can rebound. They've got some guys that can hit shots for them, but free throw shooting's an eyesore for this team. It's got to get better going into this tournament. But for me, Seton Hall, NC State, that's the one that really stands out like a sore thumb. Even Bucknell could give Michigan State a real trouble in that very first game. And if they win that first game, that could fuel confidence there. So Bucknell, even an outlandish one to some, won't be to me.
Jeff, you're going to get some titanic possible matchups here in the South. Looking at Virginia matching up maybe with a Kentucky or an Arizona or a Davidson should be a lot of fun. Talk about the South and what we can anticipate or what you would see down the line here.
Yeah, I think it's really hard for Virginia to get to the Final Four. I think their road there is going to be difficult. I mean, you're going to have to get by, Kentucky. You're going to have to get by to Arizona. Cincinnati. This is a tough bracket for Virginia. I just will continue to go back to the whole thing of I don't see a scorer on this team, a guy that could take a game over and will them to win. I think a team like Kentucky would give them problems. I think Arizona would absolutely eat them alive. Virginia has really cooled off to me. As far as the matchup I'd like to see, I'd like to see, Arizona, Kentucky. Actually, we probably see that fairly early, actually. First weekend, Arizona, Kentucky, Donnie. How about that? In a first weekend matchup? It would really surprise you. If Virginia gets to the Final Four in this region, I wasn't real sure because this is a tough region for them to get through. I don't see it.
Jeff, quick question on this region. I mean, if Arizona does match up versus Virginia, I think Virginia has the perfect matchup with Jack Bath Salt to take care of Ayton. Do you agree?
I guess if Jack actually took bath salts, maybe
or put it in the water for Ayton,
maybe he starts eating Ayton's leg or something. I don't know.
What's going to happen for Jack Salt in that game is 2 fouls in the first 3 minutes.
Sure, exactly. Yeah, and we might see a situation where DeAndre Ayton has 50 in that game because. Yeah. They don't have anyone. Virginia's had a good year, but I think they'll be out fairly early. I think Sweet 16 will be their fate, frankly.
Ian, let's head to you here in the South. Let's just say it stays chalk and you get Virginia versus Cincinnati matching up in the Elite Eight. Setting the over-under at 88.5 wouldn't be out of the realm for me. Talk about some matchups you want to see in the South here.
Yeah, in the South, I mean, everybody how about Arizona, Kentucky being a round of 32 game? How insane is that? I mean, that's how good this bracket is. If Virginia, Arizona, or Kentucky down the line I'm going to go to one that would really interest me, and I think it at least has a puncher's chance of happening. Cincinnati and Nevada. Talk about a great clash here. You've got this Nevada team that can flat out score the basketball, flat out shoot it from anywhere. Great, well-coached team, but they're going up against one of the best defenses they would be in the nation in Cincinnati. Nevada, Cincinnati, no one's going to talk about that game, but that one is one that I would be absolutely loving to see. It would be a great clash of styles matchup.
Moving down to the West, Jeff, maybe one of the bracket to me. I mean, it does have some good matchups, but not like the South, the East, or the Midwest, a little bit lower. Xavier's going to get the top seed there. North Carolina, the 2 seed. What are you looking forward to? And I know, Jeff, you have a very fondness for Gonzaga here. Maybe Gonzaga can make a run. What can we look forward to in this bracket?
Yeah, I think Xavier-Gonzaga would be a fun matchup, man. Really, really good one in the Sweet 16. Listen, I don't like the matchup for Michigan. I think Montana's a tough team. Montana's well coached. Ahmad Rory's really good. And this little break here in the action, I think, is going to bother Michigan a little bit. You do have to go out to Boise, I believe, if I'm correct. I don't particularly – it is Boise, right, Michigan? They go to Boise?
I don't have the places up here.
Yeah, I'm going to take a look at that. I believe they do go to Boise, which is – I think that's a really tough matchup. I mean – I don't know if not many people might know this, but Montana's not very far from Boise. It's not too far. It should be a decent opportunity for them. But yeah, as far as this one, Xavier and Gonzaga is one that I'll take a look at. But don't sleep on Montana in that first game against Michigan. Montana's getting a lot of points. Could be a live dog there.
Yeah, Jeff, maybe some elevation issues that maybe some other teams aren't used to.
By the way, that's in
as well.
It's in Wichita. So
there you go.
Not as good as the situation there.
Ian, West matchups we could talk about here. A&M, can they make a run? Michigan, can they stay hot? What are you looking forward to in this bracket?
Well, just going back to one of Big Man's points, you have to be aware of where these games are going to be played. Travel situation, how close it is to the university, how the fan turnout, what you can expect, how many fans of that team are going to be in the building, what the travel situation's like. You got to be aware of those things. That's got to go into your handicap in the NCAA tournament. It's not the focal point, obviously, but it's something you do have to consider and keep in mind. I'm high on Michigan. I really am. I know Montana's not going to be a pushover. And again, Michigan off the rust factor, 2 weeks off, that is a concern for me. I have no doubt about that. I won't be laying the points with Michigan, but beyond that, I'm looking at them as a bet-on team if they can get past Montana. Yeah, Xavier and Gonzaga stands out like a sore thumb as what would be a great matchup here. North Carolina, Michigan, if Michigan gets that far, would be a fantastic matchup. 2 blue bloods there. So from that standpoint, those are the ones that really stand out, good matchups that could happen.
Couple minutes left in the show. We're going to get to some Cinderella teams and also what the fellas think maybe a possible Final Four would be. Thanks for tuning into the show here, the SportsbookReview.com Selection Sunday Show, sponsored by BetOnline and Intertops. With Intertops, use Crunch Time as the promo code. Let's get in and have some fun here. Not necessarily to win the tournament, but maybe a George Mason-esque run where a team can make an Elite Eight or a Final Four that was unexpected. Ian, I'm going to start with you first. Give me maybe 1 or 2 Cinderella teams that you think can make a run and create some havoc here in the tournament.
I'm going to go with Loyola Chicago. You can go down to Florida and win on the road like they did in the non-conference season and play a tough schedule like they did. I think you can make some noise. You're good at both ends of the basketball court. You're extremely well coached. And the Missouri Valley. Now, I know this is not a situation like Wichita State, which was recruiting very well when they were in the Missouri Valley, Loyola Chicago, but there is a pattern of, at least Wichita State from that conference has had success in deeper runs in this tournament. Loyola Chicago is that team that really stands out, could be that sleeper that makes a little bit of a longer run in March than some people think.
All right, Jeff, now we're going to put you right on the spotlight here. Some Cinderella teams. Again, not necessary to win it all, but create some havoc. Who can we choose from?
Yeah, a real deep one. I'll go Montana. I think they're a team that can surprise. They played really well over the last 2 months of the season. As far as kind of like mid ones, I'll go Seton Hall. I think Seton Hall is a real good sleeper. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they got to the Sweet 16 and made a run. They have a lot of senior leadership there. And the other one, I got to be honest, I'm going to go Missouri. I think Xavier, for the record, we can all agree, they're probably the weakest 1 seed we've seen in some time at this level. They're a good team. I don't think they're a 1 seed. If this field was any better, they wouldn't be a 1 seed. I wouldn't surprise me to see Missouri beat Xavier in the second round. I think Michael Porter by that time would be pretty into that offense and running with that offense. Or Missouri could lose in the first round. I don't know. But for me, it'd probably be Seton Hall as kind of a mid one. Long shot, I'll go definitely Montana or, frankly, the South Dakota State Jackrabbits.
All right, not going to hold your feet to the fire, but we want some Final Four information out of you two here. We'll go East, Midwest, South, and West. I'm going to start with you, Jeff. Who do you think makes it out of the East and why, quickly?
Villanova, for sure. I think they're the most complete team in the country right now. Brunson has been fantastic. Bridges has turned into a top 10 pick. They've been there before. Jay Wright has finally brought in some bigs that can play. I like their bench. I love Phil Booth as a defender. Villanova will get out of the East, in my opinion. Pretty chalky there.
Ian, out of the East and why?
Villanova, complete team, offense, defense, guard play, front court. Experience, which goes a long way at this time of year. They got it all. Villanova for me.
We're going to stay with you, Ian, for the Midwest. Obviously, the top seed Kansas, number 2 seed Duke. Who's making it out of the Midwest, Ian, and why?
The Midwest is a tricky one. Reluctantly, I'm saying Duke, but this is the toughest one that I had to come up with. But I think Duke, at least they went to zone. They played better defense because, and they've obviously adapted to it pretty well since that time. They got to bring that defense with them in this tournament. But the way Marvin Bagley's going, Grayson Allen's got his confidence back, shooting the ball better down the stretch. So for me, it's Duke.
Jeff, who's coming out of the Midwest?
Yeah, I would agree totally with Ian Cameron. I think Michigan State, I've said it all year, I think Michigan State is an absolute fraud, and at some point they're going to get bounced, and we know it. They got bounced in the Big Ten. They'll get bounced here by Duke. Duke beat them once without Marvin Bagley in the second half. They still won by double digits. Duke, I think Duke's bracket, as always, is fairly easy. I think Kansas will lose somewhat early as well. So, again, Kansas is really kind of a correction one for me because I think as of week is that important to that team. But for me, I'll agree with Ian. I'm going to agree both here. I'll go Duke as well.
Let's go to the Wild Wild West, Jeff. Looks like it's going to be very wide open. We'll stick with you as well. Who's coming out of the West and why?
Listen, I think Gonzaga will come out of this conference because, like I said, I don't trust Xavier. I think North Carolina's down. Michigan's an interesting team, but I think Gonzaga's front court is very good. Tilly's great. I love John Williams. I think he's one of the more consistent players in the country. And I've talked about Rui Hachimura all season. Perkins has really came into that guard role well. Mark Few just knows how to win at this time of the season a lot, at least lately. I think Gonzaga will make a run, get to the Final Four again. We continue to forget about them, but again, remember, they challenged themselves significantly in the season. I really like Gonzaga. I don't hate this side of the bracket. If they were going to get into a bracket, it would be this one. This is the one I would pick for them.
Ian, who's out of the West? Go ahead.
Yeah, I gave it away already, but Michigan. Get out of that first game against Montana, even if it's not pretty and you're not really playing at your A game because you've been off for so long. Just get past that game. I think a long run is coming in this tournament for Michigan.
Jeff, talk about the South. Who's making it out? Virginia, the top seed. Number 2 seed, Cincinnati. We all know Arizona's lurking at the 4 seed. Who's making it out and why?
I think Arizona's going to make it out, but don't sleep on Cincinnati either. I think Arizona will edge everyone here just because they have the best player in the country and the player that no one can defend. DeAndre Ayton is on another level. They all have chips on their shoulders. You talk about a team, Donnie, that could quite possibly be involved in one of the biggest journalistic fuck-ups we've ever seen at the college basketball level. You have arguably a situation here where everything was fabricated. Other than what Pooh what's his name did. Other than that, everything else could have been totally untrue. Mark Schlabach, the fact that he's still employed by ESPN is alarming, as anyone interested in journalism would say. This is why journalism is the way it is. They have chips on their shoulders. Sean Miller, Ayton, Trier, who was railroaded for weeks by the NCAA. Arizona will win this conference. They have a really good basketball team. They're all healthy now. With Raleigh Alkins and Cartwright defending the way they are, they will win. Give me Arizona.
Ian, out of the South, who are we picking here?
Arizona's a good pick, but I'm actually going to go Cincinnati. I'm going to no Virginia, no Arizona, Cincinnati. I like the post-game quotes from that team today and the two saying that we're a team. We really play for one another. They're playing good defense. Obviously, making big shots is still going to be the key. This offense can go stagnant at times. I want to see Kane Broome get more minutes, please, Mick, in the tournament. Give Kane Broome more chances to show what he's got. He's a gifted scorer. Get him on the floor more. But I think Cincinnati can do it. Shout out to Nevada and Loyola Chicago. I don't know about Final Four, but I think they could both go a long way in this bracket.
Final bonus round. Jeff, who's cutting down the nets?
Duke.
Ian.
Villanova. Villanova.
Hey, there you go. Yep, I'm going to lean on Villanova as well as always my selection. We're just about out of time. I'll let these guys get through another couple of thoughts. Jeff, just give me a quick synopsis of your thoughts on the tournament and what we can look forward to.
Yeah, I think it's the greatest spectacle in sports. I'm very excited for it. I don't want to be arrogant here, but I can't wait to go to the Final Four. We're going to see a great Final Four this year. Could you imagine Duke, Arizona in the final? Motherfucker, I could die happy. I can't wait. NIT coming up here as well. Can't wait for it. There's a lot of money-making opportunities. Don't just say, we'll wait till Thursday. There's a lot of games. All these small conferences, there's going to be a lot of – because there's a lot of good teams. This is a real good year for college basketball, I think, as far as talent's concerned. There's a lot of good basketball teams out there. Donnie, we might have to make a trip up to the Garden again to watch that tournament final in the NIT. NIT might be a better year this year. I can't wait. College basketball is so great, and we are on the precipice of madness.
Ian, final thoughts on the tournament. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the NCAA tournament. Can't wait, but don't sleep on your NIT, your CBI, or CIT tournaments. Focus on teams that are disappointed, upset to be there. Focus on teams that maybe are looking to make a point, prove a point, play with a chip on their shoulder, and say, hey, we got snubbed. We're going to show you why we deserve to be in this tournament. Read quotes from players and coaches going into these NIT, CBI, CIT tournament games. Get a sense of where the motivation is, what the feeling is in the locker room with these teams, because if you zero in on those important, pertinent player and coaches quotes, you could profit from them. I've seen it happen year in, year out.
Well, folks, an hour and a half goes pretty quickly here. Thanks for tuning in to the Sportsbook Review Selection Sunday show, sponsored by BetOnline and Intertops. I was your host tonight, Donnie Rightside, with the big man on campus and also Ian Cameron. Thanks once again for tuning in, making the live chat box very exciting. Check out everything Sportsbook Review has to offer throughout the tournament, instant analysis, videos, everything you need to finish there. Folks, once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.